Hello all and welcome back. I hope everyone is doing really well. This video in particular is of course again going to be looking at the Hedera ecosystem, but in particular focusing on decentralized finance, because as of late we have seen a massive, and I do repeat, a massive explosion in the number of people accessing, utilizing and leveraging decentralized finance on Hedera. And as a direct result, we have seen an awful lot of price action for HTS tokens as well as HBAR alike. Great tweet here though, around 15 hours ago from Hedera, which pretty much summarizes why potentially we're seeing so much volume take place, which is low predictable fees, fair ordering of transactions and rapid confirmation times. For enterprises, builders and individuals alike, DeFi works best on Hedera. So for all of those intrinsic values to Hedera itself, low predictable fees at a fraction of a cent every single time, fair ordering with no front running possible, as well as rapid confirmation times, finality in as little as 3 to 5 seconds taking place, mean that executing and routing trades on Hedera Hashgraph is as seamless and frictionless as it pretty much gets. Right then, what's been happening over the last 24 hours or so, plus maybe scaling out to the last 5 days? Huge milestone for SaucerSwap Labs. In fact, there's been several which go hand in hand for the Hedera ecosystem. They've just achieved $100 million in total value locked, or TVL. This achievement secures SaucerSwap's position as the 22nd top DEX worldwide, bringing Hedera's DeFi onto a global stage. In fact, they went on to smash several more records after posting that tweet. SaucerSwap has facilitated nearly $20 million. Think about that for a second. $20 million in 24-hour volume, setting a new Hedera DeFi record, which also generated $50,000 in fees for liquidity providers in one day. So any of you guys that are effectively providing liquidity to pools would have received your share of $50,000 in a single day for the sheer volume of transactions that took place. Today's on-chain activity highlights the growing strength and potential of Hedera DeFi, with SaucerSwap leading the charge. Of course, there are other decentralized exchange providers on top of Hedera. However, I'd probably say 90 to 95% of the volume is through SaucerSwap Labs. Of course, they were the premier DEX. They are effectively the price oracle as well for Hedera, and they are the ones that are leading the way in terms of looking at interoperability amongst other chains, centralized exchange listings, talking with people outside of the ecosystem, etc., driving forward partnerships. SaucerSwap did then climb to number 18 in terms of TVL on DeFi Llama. In the past month alone, SaucerSwap's TVL has roared over 70% upwards, overtaking established protocols such as Bancor and QuickSwap in ranking. You got Loop running there at number 20 as well. We welcome everyone to experience firsthand why Hedera's DeFi is on the path of accelerated adoption. And I must admit, Hedera's DeFi is going from strength to strength and will continue probably going forward into the future until we start approaching some of the chains that are higher up on this list. We've got Raydium here, which is one of the Solana-based decentralized exchanges, I believe, at $160 million of TVL roughly. Trader Joe, which is Avalanche, 160 as well. And then further up as we approach the top 10, of course, we've got majority of the Ethereum-based decentralized exchanges, but also Osmosis there, which is Atom or Cosmos at $200 million of TVL. I see absolutely no reason as to why Hedera's DeFi ecosystem should be smaller than that of Avalanche or Cosmos, and potentially even Solana at some point. Of course, there are larger decentralized exchanges than Raydium on Solana, but there is a path there to continue surging forward in terms of growth for the ecosystem. Then talking about what's going on in the DeFi ecosystem at large, one of the first things that I wanted to point out is that any of you guys that have been around since, I think, roughly 2017 or 2018 within the crypto world will probably remember, many of you maybe have even been there, I certainly was, the Binance Smart Chain Casino of roughly 2017, 2018. And then again, moving forward into sort of early 2020, 2021, somewhere around then. So a few years ago now. But effectively what took place was something very similar that I'm seeing akin to happening in Hedera at the moment. You had a chain that had substantially lower fees, faster transactions, less friction than Ethereum. So many people started creating meme projects, and a lot of capital, etc., flowed across from Ethereum into the Binance Smart Chain. We saw an absolute explosion in the total value locked, the number of transactions, fees, etc. Everything was going absolutely crazy on the Binance Smart Chain as a direct result of a better alternative than Ethereum at the time, with faster fees, which meant more people could get in on the action, effectively of trying to bet on these different projects to make them some money. And potentially, I'm not saying for certain, potentially we will see that take place on Hedera. Part of one of the reasons why we absolutely love the chain, the fast finality, no front running, and the low fixed fees, could also drive another adoption wave like what happened to the Binance Smart Chain a few years back. Now, what comes with this, unfortunately, will be a lot of people trying to take advantage of different people. So you'll see lots of different meme projects, sort of shit coins effectively popping up out of the blue. Don't forget, because it's really cheap on Hedera, it makes it even cheaper for those people that are wanting to scam people to create projects and then effectively rug them. Now, fortunately, we've got lots of different safeguards in place on Hedera, but taking a look at the contracts themselves for these different HTS tokens, whether they got freeze or wipe keys, the distribution of the tokens, which wallets they've gone to, etc., all play a vital role. Now, what I'd suggest for majority of people, of course, is to stay away from the gambling fallacy of punting money onto different tokens that potentially may do well into the future. This is what we typically see, and it becomes almost a psyop, a psychological operation for a majority of people within the ecosystem that see one token do a 10 or 100x, therefore token B must be doing a 10, 50 or 100x going forward into the future. Well, unfortunately, not every project is created equal. Not every project has the same tokenomics. Not every project has the same development teams behind it that are actually creating intrinsic value for the ecosystem at large. So as I mentioned, make sure you're doing your own research and make sure you're buying into projects that you're willing to hold for the long term. The likes of the projects I've spoken about on the channel going back as far as 2021, Source, Dovu, even HBAR Suite, etc. These are tried, tested and battle-hardened development teams that have been around building in Hedera for the last few years, and they will continue to ride this wave up into the future and beyond. I'm not giving a seal of approval for you guys to just go and buy those willy-nilly, but of course, make sure you're doing your own research. There are literally hundreds of videos on my channel covering all of these different projects over the last few years of them building their trials and tribulations. Stick towards that philosophy and you'll do really well. Make sure you don't FOMO into these different projects. I've seen people lose an awful lot of money in the past doing exactly that. I don't want any of you guys to fall victim of it going forward into the future. Anyway, looking at DeFi in whole, then a couple of useful tools that will serve everyone really well if you're looking to get into sort of decentralized finance and picking up different tokens, etc., will be these kind of terminals. We've got two really that are supporting or support Hedera at the moment. We've got Gecko Terminal and we've got DEX Screener. So if you come across the Gecko Terminal, I'll leave this link down in the description. On the left-hand side, you've got Hedera Hashgraph. And I believe all this information is being populated from SourceSwap's API. But we've got all of the different Hedera Hashgraph pools that are listed on SourceSwap. So we can see SourceSwap V2 pools and V1 pools at the top. List of different pools. And you get a ton of different stats and information on here. So we've got prices of the different pools, 24-hour transactions, price history of the last 5 minutes scaling up to 24 hours, the volume, liquidity, FDV, etc. If I click on one of these pools, you get an integrated trading view chart where you can sort of do bits of different technical analysis if you're so inclined, and you can look at price history, etc. So this was this crazy run up we saw over the last couple of days for Source token, SourceSwap Labs' native token. Absolutely phenomenal performance. Scrolling down as well, you've also got an order book type thing where you can see all the buy and sell transactions that are hitting, different prices in HBAR, USD, the number of tokens, etc., the total, and you can also view the transactions directly on HashScan if you click on one of these links. Scroll down and you've got different information as well populated, I believe by the projects themselves or maybe coming from a SourceSwap feed, but different information about stats, about the project itself, socials, etc., etc. So you can kind of use these to see which pools are seeing a lot of volume, transactions, etc., taking place in the Hedera ecosystem. So that's Gecko Terminal, and the other one, as I mentioned, is DEX Screener. Very similar layout. Left-hand side here, you can click on Hedera. You see a list of the different pools. Of course, you can filter these by price and the like, and the token, the pools, etc. So I go transactions again. We'll look at the source wrapped HBAR pair. Same sort of chart, same information on the right. And you can see different information about transactions being processed almost in real time. You've also got top traders. So these are really interesting tools to use if you want to look at what's happening in the Hedera ecosystem at a given point. What's seeing a lot of volume, what's driving price, are there big buy orders taking place? Sort of see a depth chart over here on the right hand side for the number of buys, the volume, the number of buyers versus sellers, etc. So you see here we've got 1,010 buyers but only 509 sellers. But the sell volume is clearly greater than the buy volume at the moment. So potentially people taking profits. We are seeing this price continue to crab upwards to potentially reclaim that previous all-time high we saw yesterday. So that's those two. The other one that's really interesting to look at is DeFi 𝗟𝗓𝗏. So DeFi 𝗟𝗓𝗏 was a lot of the stats we were just looking at there. We can see Source Swap now sat at 19 in terms of TVL. So we lost a place to 𝗟𝗓𝗏𝗏, never heard of it before. But if you go on here, you again can see different information about total value locked across the ecosystem and lots of different metrics to do with decentralized finance. And of course, you can compare these to other chains. So I'll leave all these tools linked down in the description for you guys, but they are pretty much invaluable when it comes to DeFi on any given chain, not just HBAR. Wrapping up the video then, I wanted to talk about token prices. You'll obviously see a lot of people now commenting about, this token to go to $1, $2, $10, this token to go from 1 cent to 5 bajillion. When we look at token valuation, unfortunately, in terms of crypto, it's really, really hard to pin down fundamentals in order to value a project. Traditional financing or traditional finance. Of course, there are a myriad of different techniques you can use to evaluate a company. You've got cash flow, profitability metrics, margins, free cash flow, book values. There's a ton of different ways you can value a business to determine what a fair value for a share price is, or even the trajectory of that share price going forward into the future. Unfortunately, we don't have any of that kind of information because it's non-tangible when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Therefore, it's pretty hard and a lot of the time based on speculation as to where a token's price will go moving forward into the future. We can look at a ton of different metrics. Here's an interesting one that I did a infographic tweet on a while back on Twitter. In fact, this was the 4th of January. If you guys aren't following me on Twitter or X, I do post lots of different things like this, as well as other tidbits of information that don't always make it into these videos. But we can look at the native DEX's token price versus the total value locked on that particular DEX. Some scenarios there scaling from A to E on the Y-axis, as well as some ratios for TVL to price or TVL to market cap, low and mid ratios, and we can effectively draw confidence intervals for token prices based on TVL. So if we look at where we currently are at the moment, we're at $100 million roughly of TVL, and we could be seeing a high price based on this would have only been at roughly 1 cent. Sorry, 9 cents, 10 cents. So we hit nearly double that. So that would be indicative of us having a TVL maybe 2.5 times higher if we looked at traditional valuations for token prices versus TVL. So clearly this has broken down already. We've seen a lot more demand for the source token than what TVL alone would indicate. And of course, there are many other factors that play into this. You've obviously got the volume of tokens, circulating supply, release schedules, the core team themselves. If there's a lot of sort of volume behind the team and a lot of attention being drawn to it. And market caps are, of course, very important as well. It's much easier to move the needle on a project that's only valued at $100 million versus a project like HBAR, which may be valued at $1 billion, $2 billion, or $3 billion. The price movements you'll see, the volatility you'll see against those particular tokens are vastly, vastly different. Summarizing then in conclusion, what we're really looking for when we're looking at whether something will perform well going forward into the future is something called confluence. Basically, multiple different factors pointing towards a token either performing well or it not performing well. Those could be quantitative in nature, so good, strong tokenomic fundamentals, close to full circulating supply, full release, etc., as well as qualitative factors such as they provide intrinsic value to the ecosystem, they have battle-hardened, strong development teams, they actually generate revenue for the ecosystem. There are lots of different things that could mean a project's native token, based on what they're providing and what they're doing and the tokenomics, could perform well into the future. So there's a lot of different factors there to remember, and make sure you're doing your own research when you're looking into these different projects going forward. And as I mentioned probably about 5 minutes or so ago, as well, being aware of any of these ones that pop up that potentially could be scams because it is so cheap to do on Hedera. It's something to always be mindful of. Anyway, guys, hopefully that wraps up this video and just gives you a full recap on what we've been seeing in the decentralized finance space of Hedera. I do believe this will continue to go pretty berserk over the next few weeks and months, particularly as we look like we're getting into a bull run in terms of the wider cryptocurrency market. There's going to be a lot more equity and capital sloshing around, and people tend, or the capital tends to find its way to lower market cap projects in which they can move the needle to generate themselves some extra cash. Of course, you can take a benefit of that if you're sort of in the project slightly earlier and you're making sure you're doing your own research, but also you can get stung by them pretty badly if you're not. So please continue to be really vigilant, and hopefully everyone's enjoying the recent adoption we're seeing in terms of retail for HBAR. If you guys did enjoy this video, leave a like, drop a comment if you've got something to say. I do try and respond to as many of them as I possibly can, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.